Today's episode of Back to the Roots podcast is brought to you by Albert Lee Seed. Here at Back to the Roots, it is our goal to create connections with organic farmers across the country. Now we'd like to connect you with a leading provider of organic and non-GMO farm seed in Albert Lee Seed. Cover crops, forages, small grains, corn, and soybeans. Albert Lee Seed is helping organic and transitioning farmers diversify their crop rotations and create healthy herds, healthy soil, and healthy humans. Whether you're looking for organic oats for cover cropping, highly digestible alfalfa, or a 105-day non-GMO corn hybrid, Albert Lee has got you covered. In fact, they were the first farm seed company in the industry to offer guaranteed levels of non-GMO purity in their Viking corn and soybean line. Check out their website at www.alseed.com to see their farm seed lineup or to request a catalog. And thank you to Albert Lee Seed.
You're listening to Back to the Roots podcast. I'm Mike Klein, and along with Brian Wood today, we are joined with Doug Billman and Todd Zehr from SoilBiotics. So thank you guys for joining us today. Just so happened Todd was in Ohio today and Brian was in Ohio, so we decided to get together and have a conversation. So Doug, you're the consultant for the area for SoilBiotics, so could you give a brief introduction on what your role is?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. One of the roles that I got involved in and how I got involved with SoilBiotics is I was an Organic Valley dairy producer. And I was struggling 6-7 years ago on what I could use on my crops organically. And I actually got a petri dish of a product called Humic DG that said Omri listed on it. And so I called the company, and I think it was something that Anderson's maybe sent out. I called the company, and before I knew it, I was talking to Mr. Todd Zehr. And so I had a conversation with Todd. The next thing I know is, there's conversations with the Organic Valley vets about feeding humate to cattle, to just improve overall performance and production. And so in that conversation, Todd and I have a conversation about how humates work, and the next thing you know, he's given me an opportunity to work with him and the company because of that. And so with that, that's kind of how I got involved with SoilBiotics. Life always has challenges in it, and one of the things that happened for me was that we had a successful organic dairy farm, and we were part of the Organic Valley Co-op, but you can't hold a gun to your kids' heads and tell them, hey, you need to milk cows. They have to want to do it. And so my twin boys, neither one of them wanted to do that. They both pursued careers in agriculture. One of them, hopefully you'll hear about it sometime because he does forage grass breeding. So hopefully that, that's the career path he went. But that's kind of what led me to doing agronomic consulting with SoilBiotics, and then I do a lot with nutrient management. So I always take a lot of pride in working with farmers and saying, let's see a soil test. That's an absolute must. And then let's see the test on the pile behind the barn or the neighbor's barn. And we're going to use those animal waste materials to do most of your mineral fertilization, and then use the SoilBiotics to make them available. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I got involved.
Nice. So Todd, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction or a background?
Sure. Be glad to. Thank you for the opportunity also, guys. When I got out of college, I went to work for a large company over in France by the name of Ron Palanque, so I'm really dating myself. And I worked there for about 18 months, and it was a really big company. I had an opportunity to work with one of the leading seed treatments in the market. Bayer had just came out with imidacloprid as a seed treatment, and they called it Gaucho. That was the trade name. And so Ron Palanque was developing a seed treatment by the name of fipronil. And so I was involved with working with that product. And then we came to the U.S. and tried to promote it here, but unfortunately the product was way too expensive. It wasn't going to compete with imidacloprid. And And then I was there about 18 months, and I left and went on my own. And I had a big company, big corporate company, just wasn't for me. I have nothing against them. It just wasn't for me. So started my own company and moved out to California. And I had a seed pelleting and a priming business. So we were pelletizing lettuce seed, broccoli seed, all various different species of vegetable seed in California. And I developed the first organic pelleting and priming operation that was in California. And I had that till about 2007. We sold that to one of our competitors. I needed to come back here to Illinois because we farmed quite a bit. We had a cow-calf operation back here in Illinois. We farmed quite a bit of ground, and my dad passed away. So I needed to come back here and oversee the farm. And so I farmed for a couple years, and then I started SoilBiotics up. Again, and it wasn't SoilBiotics. We had it under a different name in California, but started SoilBiotics up in 2010. So year to date, we're in 15 different countries and about 40 states in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And
now, when you say pelletizing seed, can you explain that? I've never heard that before.
So you've seen lettuce seed. It's very, very small. Mm-hmm. And what we would do is we would put a 3-millimeter pellet around each one of those individual seedlings. And the reason why we did that was because we could plant it in a stand hay planter that had a belt. And that was the beginning of precision planting for vegetable crops. Otherwise, romaine and iceberg lettuce would just roll out through the furrow, and then they'd have to have a crew come in and hand thin it. Well, that cost about $700 to $800 an acre, so it totally eliminated the hand thinning. So it was a huge number that we put to their bottom line just by pelletizing the seed. And then that way we could keep a consistent head, because they can only be so big, because in packaging and in the retail stores, they only want a certain size head. If it's too big, it's not good. If it's too small, it's not good. So we could determine what the size of that head would be just based on our planter spacing.
Okay, that just blew my mind. I had never even heard of pelletizing, like the tiny little seeds, much less, with your spacing, you get the perfect size head.
That's it, Mike. You learn something every day, and
I
when
know.
you're around Todd, you'll definitely learn something every day.
I don't know about that. But,
so when you sold that and then moved back to Illinois.
Yeah, I sold that business to one of my competitors, and then moved back to Illinois, and in 2010 started SoilBiotics. And so SoilBiotics, we've got a full line. We're a manufacturing company. We're not a distributor. So we make all of our products, and then we sell through distributors, wholesale distributors, larger companies that have big territories, and then we sell through retail fertilizer companies, and that's worked out pretty well for us. Worked out real well, but we take a little bit different approach to the market too, because we're focusing on soil and plant nutrition, and soil nutrition being a very important part of that.
So can you give a little bit of background on some of the types of products that SoilBiotics would manufacture?
Sure. So we've got a full line of products, organic and conventional, from seed treatment to post-harvest. So we've got seed treatments, we've got micronutrients, we've got macronutrients, we've got biologicals, we've got biostimulant products, we've got residue digesting material that we have. So we've got the full plethora. I mean, we can grow a crop from start to finish.
So when you moved back to Illinois, I assume you said your dad was farming a lot of ground. Is that conventional, and the cow-calf operation conventional as well? Yeah. And what led you down the road of looking into you said both conventional and organic your lines are, but what led you down the road of looking at organic?
I've been working with organic since 1988 out in California. So that was my preface for developing the organic pellet and the organic priming process. So priming a seed means we start the germination process and then I stop it. So when we plant that seed, in 24 hours, everything's throwing a root, everything in 24 hours. So we can speed that up, and we can get it through different like in the front end of Yuma in August 5th, it can be 125 degrees down in Yuma, Arizona. Excuse me. So when you plant a seed in the ground when it's that hot, it can go into a thermal dormancy and the seed won't grow. So I figured out how to get it over that. So we primed the seed, we put a pellet on it that insulated it from the heat, but also controlled the water imbibition coming into that seed, because you didn't want it to come in too fast, because lettuce is one of those seeds that if water comes in too fast, it just floods and dies out. So we control the water coming in, and we had a perfect germination. We just had a picket fence that came up. And so that's why I developed that. And so with organics, yeah, we've been involved with it since 1988. And we're still involved with it. Our own farm, we're conventional. We're all non-GMO, but we're all unconventional still. I would love to go organic, but the only way that'll happen is if I'm farming it. I don't have that many. It's going to take quite a few people to farm the ground that we got all organic. Mm-hmm. But it'd be if I wasn't doing this, yeah, I'd probably be farming it organic. And I was doing both at one time, so I was running this company and farming at the same time. And I think one time my wife says, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to farm or run this company? And I said, both. And I grinned real big. until the company started growing, I just couldn't do both. So it's okay. I go drive a tractor once in a while, get a tractor fix, and then I'm good for another year. So got a good group of guys that are farming the ground for us, and so we watch everything pretty closely too.
Do you still have the cow-calf operation?
No, we don't. No. Not anymore. No, it was going to require way too more time than I could dedicate to it. So we had a young gentleman that wanted to get into the cattle business, so I sold him to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So when you came home and farmed, after your dad passed away, which I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
Did the itch to run a company build over time again? Or, it seems like you came home to like the perfect situation. Oh, sold my company in California. I'm going to come home and now just farm and have fun. But did the itch to do something like get back in the game, was that what got you to start it?
Yes. And, living in California for 26 years, we farmed year round. So we farmed in California, and then we'd be up in Oregon in the summertime. And then in the winter, we'd be down in Mexico or down in Yuma, Arizona. So it never stopped. And the first winter that I was home, all I was doing was just, we brought all the cows back home because they were bred and they're going to calve early in the spring. And I got bored. I thought, what am I going to do now? I got to do something. I can only do chores twice a day, and I got to have something else to do. So started out with the products that we have for SoilBiotics. We started using them on our own farm, and then it just took off from there. And so I really enjoy starting something from nothing. That doesn't bother me at all. I enjoy that. If I had to walk into something that was already established, like you said, the farming operation, all I had to do was just farm, raise cows, raise cattle, and call it good. But I think I felt like I needed to do a little bit something else. And I had all these ideas with new products and everything in my head that I wanted to develop. And so, yeah, I got the itch really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And it's been fun. It has.
Where did the ideas for these you mentioned the ideas for new products just started popping into your head? First of all, did you go to school for ag, or was the farming ag side coming from just growing up on the farm? And then where were these ideas coming from that you were seeing on the farm?
Well, both. I grew up on the farm. I was never 2 foot away from my dad at the furthest distance, because I just wanted to sponge and learn everything I could from him. So a lot of it came from that. But no, my background, my educational background is I have a bachelor's in agronomy, and my master's is in organic chemistry. So it's a little bit of a peculiar background. But as far as the idea for products, I just think about it, and I don't know how else to say it, but it just comes to my mind. I go into the lab, I put it together. Sometimes it doesn't always go together like I want it to. Work on another project, come back, put it all together, voila, it's there. And so a lot of our products are a little bit different than most of the products in the industry. What really separates our products from everybody else's is plant availability. You can feed a plant a nutrient all day long, but are you going to be efficient enough to make sure that all that nutrition is going to get into that plant? Is some of it going to volatilize or denitrify or just stay in the soil and get tied up? So with the economics of farming today, I mean, we really have to look at things very closely. We don't have that big we don't have $7 corn. You know, we don't have $16 soybeans. I'm talking about on the conventional side. So, you know, we can't throw $20 here or $30 there an acre. I mean, we got to make sure every move counts. And because we've got one opportunity to do it. So, you know, that's like right now, you know, this rain and cold weather, some people had gone in the field and we held out. I said, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to wait and be patient with it. And we have. And so but as far as the products go, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. They're just there. They're in my head. And then I start thinking about it. You know, when I drive around, I never have the radio on. I'm always thinking about something. And I write it down. I usually keep a pad by my bed at night because I'll think of something and I'll remember that in the morning. And do that. So
I don't listen to the radio either, but I've never come up with any really good ideas. I try.
Maybe, yeah. I don't. I just think about different things, or you get a call from somebody, and I mean, I'm not always making brand new products, but every year I'm bringing something new to the table, and it's just a little bit different.
So are some of these products coming from producer requests that all of a sudden, you know, something pops into your head, somebody said something earlier and now boom, here it is, or it's just like, oh, why didn't I ever think of that before? And here we go. Let's try this one out.
A little of both, or I'm thinking about something like that, or somebody will call me and say, hey, can you make this? Or they always want to know, have you heard of this product? And I said, yeah, 9 times out of 10, yeah, I know what it. Well, what's in it? Well, this, and this. Well, can you make that? Well, probably, yeah. I said, but, you know, I would make it a little bit different, and here's why. You know, rather than just having a generic product in there, let's put some chemistry in there that's really going to give you what I call the wow factor. You know, when you go out there and you apply these products on your plants and you see a big difference, and we usually really see it a lot in the produce industry. That's one of the things we say out in the West. You know, we got to give the wow factor to these guys. Mm-hmm. And because you're looking at maybe a 20-day crop or a 40-day crop, so you got some time to really see some differences.
And it's very much a monoculture there where you can get exactly what you need versus a diverse hayfield, so to speak. So is it easier to get the wow factor in produce than anywhere else?
No, you can do it in every, you know, you can do it in other crops. Yeah. It all depends on, you know, why are you growing this crop? What are you expecting out of this crop? You know, is it more protein for feed, or is it, excuse me, more carbohydrates for this? You know, why are you growing that crop? You know, we talked to some people today, and they're just growing a spelt crop, and they're gonna cover crop. That's it. They're not gonna take the grain.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I know in my experience with Todd here, and I start with him in 2013, is when I first started working with him, it was just this learning curve of how to do things a little bit out of what normal agronomics is, and trying to understand that. And so once you start to wrap your head around it, hey, this does work. And then we have a producer in this area that produces milk for Organic Valley. One of the first things, and he's one of the first people to do the SoilBiotics program. The first thing I remember him sharing with the groups when we've had different pasture walks and meetings was after he started foliar feeding, that the cow put their head down right away and start consuming grass instead of going to the lead wire, which typically is what happens when you turn cows out on pasture. They want to see how far they can get. Well, think about it. Dry matter intake equals milk yield. And if those cows are putting their head down right away, when they walk into pasture, they just took more dry matter in. They're going to make more milk yield, so you're going to get more milk per pound acre of feed stuff than maybe necessarily, oh, it looks better or it made more tons. Mm-hmm. So it's a little different realm in what the end product is. As a grass-fed milk program goes, those guys want as many pounds of milk per acre as they can get.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean more tons of feed. It's pounds of milk per acre. And the SoilBiotics stuff, based on comments like that producer, they put their head down and start eating, is going to give you those kinds of results.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, that I have a farmer that I work with that foliar sprays, SoilBiotics, or used to, and then bought feed from somebody who religiously foliar sprayed, and he skipped 1 year, and when he put the 2 bales of hay in from the guy that sprayed and his own that he didn't spray, the cows ate the other guy's first, which was a first for him, that the cows ate purchased feed before they ate hay off of their own farm. So that was eye-opening to him, you know, and I know the producer you're talking about is Jeff Miller, that the cows put the head down and eat. And we had Jeff on an episode earlier, and he talked about how, and he religiously foliar sprays, and the difference that he's seen, cows walk into the grass to move the brake wire, they start eating. They don't go look to see if the fence is down so they can get out and keep moving. I find that really interesting. And I think it's the nutrient density of the crop. Not necessarily, your yield might not go up that far, but what is the nutrient density? What is the, like you said, the milk per acre? Because that's the number that I really am interested in, is how much milk are you making per acre? If you have 30 cows, you raise your own feed, and you're doing great, but you're taking 200 acres to do it, you know, where I live, land's $60,000 an acre. And you have to get maximum milk yield per acre. And that's where I think, especially on the grass-fed milk side, you have to do something to get that nutrient density into that forage crop. And I think this is a really step in the positive direction.
And one of the things that we're doing here, kind of in a proactive approach, is we are working here with Ohio's Land Grant University on some foliar trials, but at the same time, you know, scientists are always questioning, well, how does this work, or why does this work? And they're always looking for a statistical difference, okay? The problem is I can use every forage analysis that there is available. None of them replicate the ruminant animal and what happens when she takes a mouthful and puts it in a ruminant, and how fast she takes a mouthful and puts her in a ruminant. Now, there's all kinds of calculations we can do, but I know we're going to see positive results. The other thing is that they're wanting ground that has not been ever treated before, so they can do year-to-year comparisons. And it costs a lot of money to do research, and SoilBiotics has been supportive of this research because he's not afraid to put, you know, money up front to wake people up. But at the same time, there's things that I've seen with SoilBiotics that are hard to explain. For example, and Todd, you can come in whenever you want on this, he's got a product that's called SBN 500. It's a 5% amino nitrogen. Brand new. It's not new to him, it's new to me and new to our customers, but it's organic approved. It's an amino nitrogen, which means that nitrogen, the nitrate, and ammonia nitrogen is broken down to the amino acid, sugar, protein that the plant can absorb right now as a nitrogen. But yet that has the ability to make up what I would say is 10 pounds of conventional nitrogen. So if you wanted to put, let's say, if you were using urea, which is 46% nitrogen, and 100 pounds gives you 46 pounds. So, 25 pounds is roughly going to give you 10 pounds of nitrogen. So 1 gallon of his product has the potential to make as much nitrogen availability as 25 pounds of urea. And it's a hard thing to really wrap your head around. It really is. I mean, it's a different way to think about things, and if I'm way out in left field on that, Todd, please jump in. But that's kind of how I'm grasping the information I've been told and my understanding.
Well, the uniqueness of it is we have absolutely no volatilization and no denitrification with it at all. So if you put it in the ground, the plant will get it. And it doesn't get tied up. Just because of some of the other products that we have that's going to ride on into the plant. So, yeah, it is. It's very unique. I've been using it out in California for probably 6 years now. And then we're just moving it back over here to the side of the to the globe a little bit.
So if I can backtrack a tiny little bit here, back to your original company. So is your original company, what you were doing, is it similar what you're doing with SoilBiotics on the plant nutrient side, what you were doing there with the seed coating and the pelletizing? So is this kind of the same ideas, just in a different form? Or is this a completely new ballgame from what you were doing?
No, we were doing both. I mean, we were working with seed enhancements, but we were also working with plant nutrition as well. So what SoilBiotics is now, and the other company that I had, it was almost two different divisions. So we had a seed division, and then we had the agronomy division.
Okay.
And so when one of my competitors, they wanted to buy the company, and it just worked out when my dad said he had cancer and he only had 20 months to live, and I had to make I had to make a decision, and it was going to be hard to farm being in California and Illinois. I can't be going back and forth. So it was real easy to sell the seed division, hang on to the SoilBiotics, the crop input side of it, and then we just started it back up again out here.
So you kept the plant side of it and got rid of the seed side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right, because we're still out in California in a pretty big way. Yeah, we didn't lose any business. Actually, we're still picking up business out there too. But no, I just needed to get back here, and it was just it all worked out. It all worked out for the good.
Good. I guess I kind of want to hear, what have you seen since you're back in business in, was it 2010?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen a huge change in the way agriculture is working in the United States? Because I think the practices are changing for the good. What have you seen?
I agree with you, Mike. I think attrition is good. New things are good. A lot of our salespeople, people say that we're different, and I go, well, different is good. I don't want to be a Me Too product, So I'm always thinking way ahead. I mean, I got some things in my mind that I could make today, but the industry wouldn't be ready for it for another 5 or 6 years. So I'm always on the forefront of all that. But absolutely, I mean, in the last 9 to 10 years, agriculture's changed a lot. We see more. With low commodity prices, now we have more conventional farmers wanting to look at, becoming an organic farmer. And that's not an easy thing. I mean, you have to drop one set of tools and you got to put a whole different set of tools and tool belts on. And you have to use equipment that you probably had in the back of your tool shed for the last 30 years because you've been using Roundup. Mm-hmm. And so it is a big transition. It's a big switch. But I see some guys that are farming 3,000-4,000 acres transitioning 500 acres a year. So I think they're serious to get into it, and some of these guys also have livestock, and so they see that the quality of the grain is so much better, not necessarily just from the money aspect, but oh my gosh, when I started in organics in 1988, we had 3 tools: manure, cattle, hogs, and chickens. That was it. That was our source, and that was before the NOP, and then it started to really take off and grow, and then the NOP came into play, and now we have rules and regulations that we have to abide by, which are good. Don't get me wrong, they're really good. But as far as the products, I mean, we're raising, in Michigan, 90-day corn, we're raising 225, 230 bushel corn organically. So it can be done on less inputs than the conventional guys that are raising 230 bushel corn.
Now,
Really?
Is this
Yes.
a process of I assume some of this ground is probably farmed out, chemicaled out, and regenerating it to the point that it can get to that 225 bushel to the acre. What are you seeing on that end? And then once they get to that point, how is it maintained?
So we have a transition program that we have to go through with organics. So as we know, we got a 3-year transition. So, excuse me, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to start working on the soil. We're going to take a soil test. We're going to see where those fertility levels are. And we're going to see where we need to build, where we need to maybe hold back, and where we need to be putting products on there to free up nutrition that gets tied up in the soil. And we see this all the time. So it's a program approach that we take with these folks. And then once we get that soil test done, then we put together a program, and then we start working with the soil. We work from the bottom up. It's like building a house. You don't build a house from the top down. You do from the bottom up. And so when we get these soil tests, we have a consultation with them, and then we put together a program. And the first thing we do is start working on the soil. And then we start talking about the inputs that we're going to be using. You know, there's no heavy metals or any salts in any of our products. So those can be a big hindrance to yield, disease, and insect pressure too. So I don't want any of those products any of those heavy metals or salts in any of our products. Once we put that together, and then we just start building a program, and we always start on the more challenging farms. I mean, it's easy to bring those up because if a guy's farming 2,000 acres, half of his ground's kind of poor. If you can bring 50% of his acreage, take his APH from 170 to well over 200, that's a game changer for him. Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much, you know, we line out a program. It's not just a shotgun approach, but it's a program approach. I'm a program guy. I got to have a program going in there. Otherwise, you know, you're just closing your eyes and throwing the dart to try to hit the bullseye.
So on those lower fertility acres, do you talk to the farmer about a timeline? Like, this is going to be a 3 to 5 year process, or do you give him like goals on this is what you should be able to do in year 1, this should be year 2? Like, do you lay out what you foresee for a 5-year plan, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we want them to make sure that they have at least minimum a 3-year commitment with us, you know, because with getting the soil turned around, it'll take 3, maybe 4 years. But what we do tell them is every year it gets better and better and better. So it's not like you have to invest all this money and then year 4, you get the wow factor. Mm-hmm. You get the wow factor every year because we're raising the bar. We're getting better soil. We're getting better soil conditions. We're getting better crops. We're having less disease and insect pressure. So we build that program for them. And I mean, we give them some expectations, you know, but, you know, we don't want to oversell it either because, you know, weather can do a lot of things. So the nice thing about the nice thing about the products that we do have is if these plants are under a little bit of stress, we can pick them up and get them back on track pretty easily. So, and farming today with the weather conditions, I always tell people I'm more like a weather farmer. You know, I can put together the most ideal plan and weather can just shoot holes in it all day long because, you know, here we are in May, 12th, 13th, and, you know, we're supposed to be getting a terrible thunderstorm back in Illinois on Thursday, so that's another 10 days. You know, now we're pushing close to the 1st of June. Do we have to start changing hybrids, you know, or, you know, I don't know. It's a roll of the dice for us, you know, because that's a lot. I really don't want to change. I just hope we have a super hot summer and plenty of heat units, and then I can push it. I can push the crop if I have to. I don't like to, but I can. Mm-hmm. And we can. So we have to be a little flexible too.
I think one of the things that intrigues me with the SoilBiotics program is I've always been one of these outside the box thinkers. I don't know. I just find it intriguing. You know, I started management intensive grazing in '93 with my dairy herd, and had as many as 200 jerseys on our acres. And you talk about, okay, he's really kind of screwy. He's lost his brain. And I had jerseys back then before butterfat was at a premium. But where I'm going with this is the most fun I have with Todd, and we were actually on an organic produce farms today working with people that we have in the area. And I still remember the gentleman saying, "This just goes against everything I've been told by everybody else."
Yeah, that's right. You did say that today.
And to me, working with Todd, when I hear a producer say, this just goes against everything else I've been told by everybody else, I'm like, cha-ching, I got him hooked. Mm-hmm. I got him intrigued. I got him interested, because to me, to farm organically, because I've done it myself, is to think outside the box. But yet, look at the box from 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a wealth of knowledge that we can glean from the 50 years ago model, but also use the new stuff that's coming out,
right,
and mix the two together.
It's just like the art of setting up a moldboard plow right. If your moldboard plow is set right and you plow soil conditions right, it doesn't take anything to work the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Plowing
is a lost art, by the way. There's a whole generation that doesn't know how to moldboard plow.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you look at going back to the 50-year thing, 50 years ago, all that knowledge got lost because of chemical farming. Like, these guys were great at what they were doing, but then atrazine came along, and, hey, we don't have to do any of this, and through the next couple generations, that knowledge is gone.
Well, I'm old enough. I can remember in the 70s, my dad used to do side dressing for one of the local retail companies in town, and anhydrous ammonia. I mean, it was doubling people's yields. After World War II, they were getting rid of a lot of rock phosphate. They had a lot of urea because they were making bombs with urea, and they used it for rock phosphate. So let's just get rid of it to the farmers, and they started selling it to the farmers, and yields went up. It was amazing. I mean, those were trendsetters at that time. And then it seems like, because I remember growing up when I was a kid, I mean, our rotation, because I grew up on a dairy farm, but it was alfalfa, oats, corn. That was our rotation. We just kept rotating that soil, or kept rotating those crops. And then when I came back home in 2007, on those farms, our soils were different. They weren't as mellow. I mean, it was just like velvet when I was a kid. We were putting manure out there, and we had a good crop rotation. When you planted corn, I mean, my gosh, it was just like your feet would sink down 3, 4, 5 inches. Mm-hmm. And walking on that farm when I came back, it was altogether different. So that's why I wanted to put some of the product, some of this technology that we have into play, and we do it every day. I mean, we can make people money, but you're going to have to spend a little to make it. But once you do, it's not like you're going to have to be putting this money in it all the time. It's just because once you get the soil working for you, you get that biology, and you get a good decay system in there, you can pretty much sustain itself. Plus, you get a lot more, I don't want to say free nutrients, but more available nutrients, and then you don't have to put added products on there. So your addition of NPK and micronutrients can be much, much less if the soils are right.
But isn't the animal being removed from the system the detrimental part?
I think that's a big part of it, yeah.
Because an animal completes the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And when you remove that animal and it's just a commodity now, you're going to have to bring the animal back in a different way. And is that what you're trying to do? Kind of try to close the cycle without the animal involved.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got some tools in the tool belt that'll help close that loop, but it's by keeping the animal. I mean, because anymore, I mean, all of our animals are in confinement. I mean, other than out here, this is beautiful. I mean, this is the way animals need to live.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some dairies, they're only keeping those cows 2 years. Well, that cow's not even in full lactation. But what she's being fed and how she's being treated, she's just, in 2 years, she's broke down.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty scary, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things, too, that we need to be aware of, especially here in Ohio, is the Western Basin, Lake Erie, the water quality rules and regs that are going to come in. This area of Ohio could end up with the same rules that they have in the Chesapeake watershed. There's producers out there that say, well, I don't participate in government programs. I'm not going to do a nutrient management plan because most of those are all checked through the farm service agencies of USDA, different programs, NRCS kind of thing. But what happens to that farm if you get Chesapeake shed and you have to now have a nutrient management plan in order to buy any fertility product, which some of the people in the Chesapeake watershed have to have, irregardless of their affiliation with whether they want to participate in government programs. So, for example, the plain folk per se, they don't participate in those, but if they want to buy fertilizer, they're going to have one. And so being conscious of what those do, and that's where the SoilBiotics, especially the Mine Rock Humate product that we have, the 2R Soil Boost, has the humic, the fulvic, and the omic acids in, and it really does make a difference in that overall soil condition. There's guys down here on strip mine ground that have used it. One of the producers here ran it through his corn planter in the dry fertilizer box on some strip mine ground. The Organic Valley dairy producer, Jerry D. Miller, ran it through the dry fertilizer box, said he had the best corn silage yield ever. And then I got another producer here in the county called me last winter, not this winter, but the previous winter. He goes, Doug, I got a problem. I go, yeah, what's that? He said, my sons are mad at you. I go, why are your sons mad at me? And at first I was kind of scared when he says I got a problem, because I figured he's using our products and something went wrong, and I'm like, this is a disaster. He said, no, the issue is they can't go canoeing down in the bottom field anymore. Because the way the field sloped, it basically made a pond out there that was like a 3-foot deep, half-acre pond when it had a lot of rain. And he used the 2R Soil Boost on his land, and it changed the water holding capacity, opened up the soil structure, changed the bonds in the soil enough that it had better infiltration of that water. And so I was just on that farm last week, and Mike, you know how many farms have you drawn by in the last week where you see a puddle, or not a puddle, but a lake alongside the edge of a field? I went over to his farm, and I'm going past all these ponds in the field, and I looked down in the valley, and you could tell it was wet, but there was no standing water in this place. The canoe's still there. The kids hadn't moved the canoe. I think they were hoping that maybe someday they could use it again. But there was no water there. So there's something that I don't understand. And then the other thing is, some of the other producers that are on that ground too, I've seen less weed pressure. I've seen beautiful winter wheat that's pushed 90 bushel with 61-pound test weight just 6-7 miles south of where we're sitting right now. We're just so much less weed pressure. I mean, I took a picture of the field. It looked like conventional wheat that was probably sprayed with 2,4-D. It was that clean. There wasn't a weed in it.
I took pictures of that field too.
There wasn't a bug. There wasn't a bug in the. Usually you see like Japanese beetles or grasshoppers or something in the, in the gravity box. When it comes out, it was clean. There wasn't an insect in it. And he used the SoilBiotic program, from the 2R to the foliar feeding on a wheat. It's mind-boggling what you see. And for somebody that grew up as old as I'm getting to be, where you kind of see this full circle coming around, but now it's like somebody put some really neat science behind the stuff. And that's what gets me excited about working with the SoilBiotic. This stuff is cool. I can't some days wrap my head around it because
we don't need to know everything, Doug.
But it doesn't make some logic sometimes, It's like, but yet maybe I'm scientific enough. I want to try to explain it. So when somebody that does have this scientific mindset, I can explain it to them. But sometimes I say, if stuff works, just accept it. Just get over it.
I think the best way to do that is, why don't you talk to this farmer that's used it?
Yeah.
And the farmer you're talking about is Ron Milner, who we had on the podcast. And that wheat that you were talking about, Doug, I have never in my life seen a 25-acre field of wheat. And it was as clean as any field I've ever seen. It was crazy. And then my nephew actually combined it, and Ron said, go ahead and fill the wagons, and then you can go home. When he came back, he called Ryan, my nephew, and was like, why did you go home? Because you only made a couple of rounds. He said, well, the wagons are full. He couldn't believe it. He thought Ryan just quit and went home because he was 15 years old.
So there's some really neat stuff going on with the SoilBiotics program. And I'll tell you, in 13, the sample box that he gave me, I had a conventional box that had 6 products and an organic box that had 5 products. Now I got a box that's got 30 products in it. And the conventional's like 5, and the rest is there may be another 2 or 3 conventional products, but for the most part, the rest of it is conventional / organic, or organic / conventional is a better way to put it.
And we have a lot of growers that are using the organic products. 10 years ago, they thought, an organic product was an inferior product. I'm not going to get the yield from this. This is just foo-foo dust. But now they're realizing that, I think there is some merit. So our conventional growers, about 2/3 of the products that they're using for ours are organic. Mm-hmm. And so we would have a conventional label, and then we'd have an organic label. And if now the conventional guys are getting products that have an organic label on it, they're not questioning it.
I think that's what's exciting is when you see conventional agriculture actually embrace an organic product or an organic practice into their operation because they're seeing it actually works. Mm-hmm. And because the word organic to them has such a negative connotation to it, to see them embrace it because they're seeing the results, to me, is really exciting.
Yeah, and when you're getting yields that are we're getting yields just as good or better than some of the conventional guys on organics. And so
it goes back to, like Doug was saying, that with organic, what you're seeing with your products is very similar to what we see with organic. Some guys just have to see it happen. I feel like we went too far down the scientific path with conventional agriculture, that we went down the urea, and you see the immediate response. This is something we were talking about earlier today, that immediate response that you see from putting that heavy dose of nitrogen on. And with organic, it's just one of those things that first of all, it's going to take some time. And second of all, you got to see it to believe it. And once you get that ball rolling, it's easier to do, but to get the ball rolling is very difficult. Right. But once you have a neighbor that says to their conventional farming friend that, hey, I use this product, or we went organic, or we use this practice, and it worked. Look at our field right now. That speaks volumes. That speaks more than any words that we can say, I think.
We had some winter meetings this year in Western Illinois, and it was probably, I would say, two-thirds of the guys were organic and the other third were conventional. And the one guy, he's been coming to the meeting for about 4 years, but he never has bought anything. And this year, the meeting keeps getting bigger and bigger with our distributor, which is really exciting to see too. Mm-hmm. And so this guy comes in that hasn't bought anything for 4 years and starts talking to some of the other farmers. And by the end of the day, he was ready to put an order in. So he was talking to other people that had experienced. I mean, Doug and I we can talk till we're blue in the face, but we farm also. So, I mean, I got some exposure from that side of it too, but we're still making the product. So when they hear it from a third party, that holds a tremendous amount of weight. And by all means, we're not prompting anybody to, hey, go over there and talk to Mike, make sure, you put a bug in his ear. This guy openly goes up and starts talking to other people because he's in a community, he knows these guys, but he was just really skeptical. Mm-hmm. And so it's always fun to work with the doubting Thomases, of the worlds, because, I mean, that's okay. It's not a bad thing. They're just cautious. And so you just start out with what's your biggest problem that you struggle with in farming? And then capitalize off that.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes farmers are the worst secret keepers ever. Because if something works, they want to tell the world that this works, because there's no such thing as a niche in agriculture. Okay, because there's of course little niche markets, but if something works for a farmer, he's going to tell 10 farmers. If it doesn't work, he's going to tell 25 farmers for sure. I think that is the best way for somebody to get comfortable with using a product is talking to a farmer that's actually doing it. With Brian and I's job, we don't promote any products or anything like that. If a farmer has a question about foliar spraying or something, we turn them over to, hey, call this guy. I know he does it. Ask him about it. We try to connect farmers to farmers because we're blue sky salesmen, okay? I'm not paying my bills with a milk check. So talk to somebody who is. Right. And I think that's, farmers can sometimes be not sometimes, they are the greatest asset to their fellow farmers because they will shoot straight. Does the product work? What have you seen?
Yep.
I think that's the best way for a farmer to decide if he wants to use something or not, or which direction he wants to go.
And that's how our business has grown, just by word of mouth. We don't advertise. We don't spend, big money on advertising in a lot of magazines. I mean, we'll help out with the local FFA or the 4-H clubs and things like that. But as far as, putting a $10,000, $20,000 ad in Prairie Farmer or something like that, we just don't do that. And it's all been word of mouth. And, this winter we had some people that approached us and they were struggling with some of their crops. And I said, why don't you let me give you a couple numbers and you can go talk to these people. Oh, would you do that? I go, well, sure. Mm-hmm. Because it works. It works for us anyway. Mm-hmm. I want you to talk to somebody that's had some exposure to it. Because I can tell you, you don't know me from Adam, and I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face, and you can either buy into it or not. Mm-hmm. So let's talk to somebody that's had their hands on the products.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's really neat about this, because today we were on a 500-acre organic crop production farm that was a referral. And so when you start getting those kinds of people, then that starts getting you excited, Mm-hmm. I didn't have to go looking for this guy. He come looking for us because some farmer talked about it.
And then that farmer may say, I've got a couple other buddies in the next county, and you just go to that. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And we were joking around with this producer today because he's like the only organic guy around in the whole county. So he's got all these conventional guys that are always watching, and you probably think he's got a few screws loose. You know how the conventional people can be sometimes.
Well, some organic guys do have the screws loose.
But what was neat about it is, we walk out there, this can be exciting, and we're joking with him. He said, they're going to count your grain carts because he's big enough that I'm sure he's got big equipment. And I'm like, they're going to be like, Joe, did you see that? He hauled 12 grain carts out of that field. I got the same acres, and I only got 7. What's he doing? Isn't that supposed to be organic? He's got to be cheating. And I know, Mike, you've been called out when we first started foliar spraying because people were accusing producers of spraying herbicides because they were putting foliars out on there.
That's because my dad didn't want a foliar spray because he said the Bible talks about abstain from all appearance of evil. He didn't like the sprayer in the field.
That works.
One thing I want you to touch on yet, Todd, is you said you're in 14 or 15 countries. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the international stuff? Because we did a podcast with the Omsco organic co-op that's a part of Organic Valor from England, and we had them on the podcast, which was really interesting. So I'm really interested about the international side of it.
So all of our international business comes from referrals. So, for instance, we have a distributor that takes care of Ukraine, Central Asia, the Baltics, Bulgaria, Poland, Then we have distributors that are over in Asia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and then Eastern Europe. But the international business comes from word of mouth also. So we'll get a call from the Ministry of Agriculture from a certain country, and it's a very formal meeting. So I'll go in there, I'll be in front of a panel. So they'll have the wheat specialist, the corn specialist, the soybean specialist, the permanent crop specialist, be it like permanent crops being citrus trees, nut trees, those types of crops. And they're sitting there. I talk a little bit about the company, what we do, who we are. And these are all countries that have just really abused their farm ground. Not all countries, but I'd say probably 2/3 of them have. From drilling oil, being really oil dependent, and now they're realizing that they need to be more agricultural dependent because they were pumping all this oil and shipping it out, but they were bringing all these imports in. They weren't producing enough of their own food, and it's because they've destroyed a lot of that soil. So we get called in to come in and get the soil rejuvenated, get it turned around. We're on a project right now in Vietnam. It's a 10-year project where we're going to be cleaning up all the dicot that was applied during the Vietnam War, which was about 20 million gallons. And it's going to take about 10 years to get it cleaned up. It's about 35 million cubic yards of soil that we're going to be working with. So it's hundreds of miles, quite a bit. And so then I got to go over to Vietnam probably sometime in June. I got to do another presentation over there, and then they're going to decide, I think, by the end of August, and then get this project off the ground. So we get the international business is all word of mouth, and it's been really easy. It's been a lot of fun to work over there. I mean, you got to be careful, who you work with, and make sure you're hooked up with the right distributors. There are some countries that would love to have us come into those countries, but unfortunately, I haven't found the right match for us, the right distributor to start working with. I've interviewed some of them and just didn't have a good warm fuzzy feeling about it. So then we find out we have our law firm do a lot of background checks on things. You just have to nowadays, it seems like, just to make sure this. I always say this is to help keep the honest people honest. And so our international business is really growing. I do all the international stuff. I take care of all the international business. It's very different for me to go over there and do it because typically companies will send somebody else. Well, I own the company and I develop all the products. So if I go over there, they think that's just the latest and the great. That's a great thing. I got the owner of the company, the guy that makes the products here. And I said, I'm doing this for a reason because I don't have anybody else that I can trust to do it. And I want to do it. I want to make sure that it goes off because you get one opportunity and that's it. Mm-hmm. And if things go south, then you probably never get back in there. But I can say that every country that we've gone into, our business has grown.
And what is driving them to, you said about 2/3 of them are abusing their soil or, in Vietnam, they're cleaning this up. What is driving them to actually want to take action to regenerate that soil? Is it feeding their people, or is it health reasons, or what is the reason driving that?
I always said, we have wars over land, we have wars over oil, we have wars over religion, we have wars over a lot of things. Our next wars are going to be over food. And the main thing that countries want to make sure that they can do is feed their people. That's first and foremost. And plus, they see dollar signs or euros or whatever their currency is that they're trading in. They see opportunity with agriculture. Excuse me. They see what we're doing here, and there's, for instance, there's a big push right now. They're having problems growing hazelnuts and in Bulgaria, and they're having trouble growing hazelnuts in Azerbaijan. So they want to get that market pumped up because they can send a lot of them here to the U.S. Hazelnuts are becoming the new pistachio or the new sunflower seed. Let's just put it, they're very healthy for you. I mean, we don't grow a whole lot of them here. We can grow them here, but the weather conditions are a little bit more conducive in other parts of the world.
So they've just, over the years with, like, take hazelnuts, for example, they've just ran the soil into the ground and their yields have bombed. Is that why they're looking to try to regenerate and try to build it back up in the same crops? Or are they trying to diversify into other crops as well?
A little of both, Mike. They're trying to diversify and get into more crops, but they're also trying to reestablish some crops that they had there before. So when they were pumping oil, they just wiped out everything. They took out all the groves. The farming. We're making more money on oil. We can bring in food. We can bring in imports. Well, now, oil's not as lucrative as it was, a couple years ago, and we're pumping more oil here in the States. So we can basically supply ourselves with as much oil as we want. And so now they're looking for different streams of revenue, and agriculture is number one. Plus, Russia's doing this. The Russian government's doing this. Azerbaijan, all those states in Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, all the stands, so to speak. That's what I call them there in Central Asia. Very oil-dependent countries, and now they want to get into agriculture. And some places they can grow some really good crops, And so they're basically trying to get back in it again because of 45 years of drilling oil and just pulled out the groves and, quit farming and punched holes in the ground and started pumping oil out.
What is their soil like? Is it similar? Their climate's similar to here, drier, hotter? Where is their climate? Pick. Where did you say you were? One of the stands. Yes.
Azerbaijan?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So Azerbaijan, it would be similar to Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, here in the States. And then we do a lot of work in Ukraine. Ukraine would be very similar to our climate here. And Ukraine has some of the best soil I've ever walked on in my life. You just want to roll around in it. It's just like velvet. Yeah, you get up around Poltava, which is about 300 kilometers northeast of Kiev, and it's some of the richest soil in the world. 60 meters of pure black soil. Yes.
60 meters of black soil. I thought Illinois was crazy with 8 feet.
I got 10 on a farm.
Oh, you got 10?
Yeah. And I got 10 foot of L8 clay Tama soil, but a mile away as the crow flies is as white as that sheet of paper. Timber ground. But in Ukraine, even Hitler during World War II, he realized how important good soil was because they were sending thousands of rail cars from Germany up to Poltava and bringing that soil back to Germany and spreading it on the farm ground in Germany.
Wow.
That's the truth, yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. And so every area has their own. It's no different than from north to south here. We have different regions depending on we're going to have longer growing seasons in the south than we are up in the north. Now when we get to the Philippines, we get to Vietnam, Thailand, we're growing stuff year round there. Hot, humid, sticky, just very tropical, extremely tropical weather down there. And so our next big project in Vietnam is the coffee. Vietnam is number 2 in coffee production in the world. Brazil being number 1, and Vietnam being number 2. After the Vietnam War, the United States said they were going to go in there and help them rebuild, after we blew them up. That didn't happen. Russia came in and said, well, we'll help you rebuild. That didn't happen. So what they did was they started clear-cutting all that jungle, and they started producing coffee. And so they have a really nice Arabica coffee over there. Mm-hmm. That's a big crop for Vietnam. That and some of the tropical fruits, the dragon fruits, and a lot of the citrus, a lot of permanent crops over there.
Mm-hmm. Talking about all the different soil types around the world, when we had Ray Archuleta on, he said something that I've not been able to get. I can't forget it. I don't think I will ever. That no matter where you are on planet Earth, soil functions the same. The function of the soil is the same no matter what the soil type is.
Functioning being what?
Like he's talking about the biology and everything in the soil, it functions the same.
Correct. He's right. That's correct, yeah.
I never really thought, you think, well, you've got hot, sandy soil, yet the actual function of that soil is still relatively the same.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, weather conditions make a big difference on your soil, how it's weathered over the years. What were you fortunate enough to get a bunch of black dirt dropped on your area, or did you get a bunch of blow sand dumped in your area, you know, when the glaciers went through? So a lot of that plays a big part of it. Mm-hmm. But weather is probably, he's right. It does play the exact same, it plays the same function here in Worcester, Ohio, as it does in Baku, Azerbaijan. But you have different soil types and different weather conditions. Mm-hmm. It's the weather conditions that will change how some of the soil reacts. Mm-hmm. But as far as, you know, we can have a full-time job just remediating soils around the world. There's a lot of soils that are contaminated, that have been destroyed, you know, from overproduction of, I always use oil because that's one of the biggest things that we see, you know, over in Central Asia and Europe. Mm-hmm. And so we can go help them get things turned around, get them on a program. They follow directions very well, and they're very excited about the outcome at the end of the day.
So are there countries that you have to worry about flying into to work with?
I don't. No.
Yeah, but you're a really, really big dude, and, you know.
Well, with this look, they think I'm in the military, so it gets me through a lot of places. It's amazing what I can get through.
Do you wear camo to go just to be safe?
No, actually, my last trip in Europe, I had to catch a connecting flight, and I looked at the line in between and the transfer, and there's no way I was going to make it. And I looked over, and this guy looked at me, and he pointed to me, and he says, "Come this way." And I followed him. I'm thinking, okay, where am I going now? You know. And he took me through another area, and I went through security. He says, "And your plane is right over there." I don't know.
Celebrity or scared of you?
Maybe Langley has something to do with it. I don't know.
I might have called a favor into a buddy, huh?
Yeah, friends in high places.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But to kind of wrap it up here, you know, one comment you said was, in the future we may have wars over food. I hope you're wrong.
I do too.
But at the same time, on the optimistic side, I'm glad that people are taking interest in caring for the soil again and growing a productive crop, and also using, relatively organic practices. You know, you talked about the lack of, or you don't have salts and heavy metals. Well, that's what most commercially available fertilizers are these days.
Right.
And we're destroying soils in the process of using those products. And so I'm really optimistic to hear that people are really, truly caring about getting productive ground, getting productive crops, getting healthy food to their people. I mean, I hope that's the direction we're going rather than wars over that actual food.
Well, I agree too. It's just, you know, there's more people, we're living longer. There's more people on the earth, you know. Can we produce enough food for everybody in the world? Absolutely we can. But there's some parts of the world that control their people by how much food that they give them. So if your normal caloric intake was 2,500 calories a day and you're only getting half of that, you're probably not going to buck the system too much because, one, you're not going to have the strength to do it, or they could just cut you off completely. And so I have seen that. So a lot of some countries are controlling their people by the amount of food that they give them, which is sad. Mm-hmm. It's very sad. But on the other hand, you know, there's a lot of countries that know that they have an opportunity to produce something that maybe nobody else can produce. And so that gives them, and that's what I do, is I go in there and I kind of look at these markets. I said, well, you know, you can grow pistachios here, and you've never grown pistachios. And you can do that, and then I can open up a whole other market for you here. Or you can be growing this. And like, can we grow that here? I said, absolutely you can. But it's too hot. Don't worry about that. I can take care of that. You know, we can keep the soil cool. We can keep that plant healthy, even under really hot conditions. So hot conditions, cold conditions, wet conditions, you know, any type of abiotic stress that plant can get, you know, we try to get it over the hump. So it's fun. There's always a new challenge every day. That's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, I clearly hear that you really like challenges.
I do. I've never turned. I'll take anything on. I don't mean that in a bad. I mean, I really do. I mean, I'll take on a challenge in this industry.
Because when you talk about, really hot climates, that scares a lot of people. And to hear you be excited about a hot climate, I like hot weather too, but I'm not trying to grow a crop. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really interesting that you just embrace the environment and the weather where it is, and you accept it as a challenge. Let's go do it.
Yeah, and even if they have poor water conditions, we can improve the water quality too. So if they got high bicarbonates in the water, say the pH is 9, we can pH that down to 6 or 6.5 or 7. So because when the pH is really high, the plant just won't take in that water. You may be delivering water to it, but the plant's still looking sick. So there's ways to jumpstart that plant and allow the plant to take in. We drop the pH of the water. Everything that we're giving that plant's going to go into the plant, and not just in the soil, and then just evaporate off.
Wow.
So there's this symbiosis between the soil and the plants. And so that's why we always say we focus on soil and plant nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to at least plug on where they can find SoilBiotics, and if dealer in their area, or how they get a hold of SoilBiotics if somebody has an interest?
Sure. You can go on our website, www.soilbiotics.com. You can go there and you can reference our products. I always refer people to our website because it's very educational, and we've had a lot of good comments on it. I mean, we've had some people behind the scenes that put this together. They have me write out something, and then they make me sound really good on paper. But it's an educational website. You can go to our website, or we're located in Kankakee, Illinois, here in Worcester. Doug Billman is our representative here. We have representation, around the state, but feel free to go on our website. You can contact our main office, and somebody will put you in contact with one of our salespeople or myself, and we can start the journey from there.
Well, we wish you guys nothing but the best, and it's been exciting to hear what you guys are working on. So thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.